Welcome to our presentation today regarding obesity and obesogens. What's the connection? My name is Lori, and I'm a faculty member in the science department in the School of General Education. This presentation is part of an annual National Nutrition Month activity for 2023. The theme for this year is Fuel Up for the Future. The learning outcomes for this presentation are as follows. Define the term obesogen, identify the possible connection to obesity, locate potential sources of obesogens in the food and water supply, and provide solutions to minimize the risks. According to the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, prevalence of obesity in the United States was 41.9% as of March 2020. This was an increase from 30.5% in the year 2000, an overall increase of about 11.4%. Weight that is higher than what is considered healthy for a given height is described as being overweight or obese. Currently, body mass index, or BMI, is the screening tool that is used to determine overweight and obesity. One thing to remember is that BMI does not measure body fat directly, but is moderately correlated with more direct measures of body fat. In addition, BMI appears to be strongly correlated with various adverse health outcomes consistent with those more direct measures of body measurements. The causes of obesity are multi-factorial. There is no simple or one answer to the cause. Some of the more commonly stated causes of obesity include eating a diet with foods high in fat and calories, such as our convenience or fast food, genetics, which can have an effect on how much food we eat, how much energy we expend, or how fat is stored in the body, portion sizes, especially when we eat out, we want to get our money's worth. Stress, high levels of cortisol can, for instance, increase our appetite with that preference for our comfort foods. Having a sedentary or inactive lifestyle, exercise can go a long way to help us burn calories. Not sleeping enough, which can lead to hormonal changes that make you feel hungrier and crave certain high-calorie foods. Psychological issues such as depression or anxiety, which may cause a person to use food as a way to cope. And perhaps even medication, whether prescription or over-the-counter, may cause a stimulation in appetite or affect the rate at which our body burns calories. Over the 15-plus years, scientists have been looking into environmental factors related to this increased risk in obesity. One of these factors being researched is called obesogens. In 2006, Bruce Blumberg, a cell biologist at the University of California, Irvine, coined the term obesogen when his lab showed that tributyltin chloride, a chemical used in fungicides, herbicides, and insecticides, promoted fat promotion in mice. Obesogens are considered a type of endocrine disrupting chemical. So think about the fact that your endocrine system is made up of glands and organs that make hormones in your body. These hormones serve as your body's chemical messengers and can control many functions, such as growth and development, metabolism, and reproduction. These obesogens hijack that messenger system and start to change your health in a variety of ways. Now, obesogens can include substances that we often think of as fattening and occur naturally, something such as fructose, most notably fructose that is used in the form of high fructose corn syrup has been called an obesogen due to our extremely high intake of food and beverages that are highly processed and contain high fructose corn syrup. Obesogens can also be found in our food and water through artificial chemicals. These chemicals may be added intentionally, particularly in highly processed foods, or it could be indirectly through our packaging, residual pesticides, and environmental contaminants. So in this presentation, we're going to focus more on the chemicals that might be impacting our food and water supply. So I thought we'd take a minute here and do a poll. For those of you that are not familiar, if you go down to the bottom right of the screen and click on activities, it's the square, circle, and triangle. Then click on polls and mark your response. Our question is, do you believe you include an obesogenic diet as part of your lifestyle? An obesogenic diet is something you may not have heard of before, but this is obviously a term that goes along with the idea of obesogens. All right, so we'll go ahead and end the poll. It looks like one of you has responded no, and then three of you has said maybe, but I'm not quite sure what it is. An obesogenic diet is one that is very commonly used in our Western society. It is often associated with highly processed food items being consumed, lots of fast foods being consumed, a good portion of ready-to-eat meals, and of course, an increased consumption of sugar-sweetened beverages. So, if you consume any of these types of foods on a routine basis, then you may be following an obesogenic diet. So, what is the potential impact related to obesity with regards to these obesogens? What research has shown is that obesogens may increase the actual number of fat cells that are in a body. And of course, if we have more fat cells, we have the potential to store more fat. It may increase the storage levels of fat already in existing fat cells, making each of our fat cells even bigger. It may alter the rate at which fat cell production versus destruction occurs, so we end up with more fat cells to gather more fat on our body. It may shift the energy balance to favor calorie storage as opposed to calorie expenditure. It could even change your basic metabolic rate or at the rate at which we burn calories. Some research shows that it also may alter our gut microbiota to promote food storage and possibly modify the hormonal control of appetite and fullness, leading to the concept of overeating. So these are just a couple of different ways that research is showing the connection between obesity and obesogens. So might we find the chemical obesogens in our food and water supply? Let's take a look at a couple of these and see what research has to say. The first is bisphenols, BPA, which perhaps is a fairly well-known obesogen. The evidence related to BPA is based primarily upon animal studies, such as with mice. BPA is a synthetic compound used to make polycarbonate plastic and epoxy resins. So we as humans are largely exposed to this BPA when we eat food that has been stored or heated in BPA-lined containers. Because BPA compounds don't fully attach to the plastic, it can leach into our food as a result of changes in pH levels, such as exposure to acid from the food in the containers, and or from increased temperatures, such as in cooking or the heating process. Research has shown that BPA has been found in newborns, children, and adults. It can be measured in bodily fluids and tissues such as blood, urine, saliva, breast milk, and fatty tissue. According to the Reading research, it is estimated that more than 90% of Americans have been found to have BPA in their system at any given point in time. It can accumulate in our body fat and will gradually be released over time via urine and bile. Research has also shown that with pregnant rats that were exposed to BPA, the baby rats gained more weight throughout their lives. So, while research suggests that BPA may cause harm at high levels, the Food and Drug Administration considers BPA safe, given that the amounts that migrate from food packaging to foods and beverages is relatively small. Comes as no surprise that more research is needed to establish a definitive connection in the human body between BPA and obesity. Phthalates are another potential obesogen. Research has been conducted in both animal and human studies. Phthalates are a group of man-made chemicals that are used to make plastics more durable and flexible. So where we as humans may find this is in gloves that are worn when handling food, such as in restaurants, conveyor belts in food processing plants, and in plastic packaging and fast food wrappers. Most test tube and animal studies support that phthalates affect the development of obesity and type 2 diabetes. Similarly, actual studies in children have linked these compounds to increased body mass index and thus obesity risk. Phthalates are found pretty much everywhere, and the end products are estimated to be in over 75% of the US population as measured via urine. Fortunately, phthalates are short-lived in the body and are excreted via urine, stool, and sweat. The Center for Disease Control and Prevention states that the levels found in humans won't necessarily cause harmful health effects. Likewise, the FDA states there is insufficient evidence to claim that phthalates pose a safety risk. Thus, as with BPA, more data is still needed to learn about how phthalates may affect human health and obesity. Atrazine is a third potential obesogen. It's an herbicide used on crops such as maize or corn, soybean, and sugarcane. It's also used on golf courses and lawns as a pre-emergence broadleaf weed killer. So, atrazine may be found in groundwater, tap water, or even bottled water, even if it's filtered. And possibly food with a high water content like watermelon and cucumbers. Now, animal studies show that long-term exposure to atrazine may increase the risk of obesity and insulin resistance, especially when it is linked to a high-fat diet. Research also shows that it has a potential effect on the development of chronic diseases such as diabetes, cancer, birth disabilities, as well as gestational diabetes. We can measure atrazine levels in blood, fat, semen, and breast milk. The end products of atrazine leave our body within about 24 to 48 hours, primarily through urine and feces. While evidence in animals points towards atrazine having obesogenic effects, studies are still a long way from proving its contribution to the obesity epidemic in humans. Organotins are another potential obesogen. This is a class of organochlorine compounds used with PVC, anti-fouling paints, and pesticides. These are fat-soluble and do accumulate in our body's fat tissue. One of these chemicals, abbreviated TBT, is an antifungal paint that gets applied to boats and ships to prevent the growth of marine organisms on the hull. It can then be released into water and deposited into sediments, contaminating lakes, rivers, and coastal waters. So as such, fish and seafood may be a source of organotins in our diet. Fish, especially like tuna, salmon, mackerel, and cod, as well as scallops, surimi, squid, and oysters, may contain organotins that are part of our human diet. Scientists have discovered that marine waters contaminated with TBT have caused what's called imposex in some sea snails, meaning that female snails develop male sex organs. This is considered the best example of an endocrine disrupting chemical in wildlife. In addition, test tubes have shown that TBT promotes the formation of fat cells, while animal studies have demonstrated that its exposure results in increased fat accumulation and reduced muscle mass. Interesting enough, animal studies also show that when mice are exposed to TBT throughout pregnancy and lactation, third and fourth generation male offspring have more and larger fat cells, suggesting that there could be a sex-specific transgenerational predisposition to obesity. No surprise, more human research is needed for a definitive connection. Our last obesogen to mention in this presentation is PFOA. This is a chemical that is part of a larger class known as forever chemicals. That's because these forever chemicals, they don't break down in the environment for a very long period of time. PFOAs are man-made compounds and they do not occur naturally in the environment. It's a surfactant that is used in waterproofing. So when food contaminates, it comes from food wrappers and microwavable food, such as microwave popcorn bags, pizza boxes, fast food containers, of course, as well as non-stick pans. Another way that we get exposed to PFOA is through contaminated water sources, including bottled water. PFOA levels decline in our blood naturally by about half every 2 to 4 years, assuming there is no additional exposure, and they are excreted primarily via our urine. The CDC has measured serum levels in humans and found nearly all of the individuals that they tested had some type of forever chemical in their body. Based upon research completed in mice, studies have linked PFOA exposure with health problems such as thyroid disease, high cholesterol, obesity, hormone suppression, and certain types of cancer. In addition, studies in mice suggest that those exposed to PFOAs before birth had a higher chance of developing obesity when they reached adulthood. Now, there was a recent study published in February of this year, 2023, that involved 312 adolescents and 137 children. And what the researchers found that in all of these individuals, there was a disruption in the lipid and amino acid metabolism, as well as altered thyroid hormone function. And each of these individuals also had some type of forever chemicals in their system as measured via blood. So what's concerning here is this is a growth and development stage. The thinking may be that down the road, this could increase these individuals' risk of developing conditions like diabetes, cancer, and cardiovascular disease. It's also interesting to note that as of January 2023, 2 states, California and New York, have actually banned some of these forever chemicals. By January of 2024, there's 7 additional states that are going to be banning some of these forever chemicals. Now, this ban is going to be impacting the restaurant industry, specifically related to food packaging and many other aspects of the restaurant operation, including straws, eating utensils, disposable bowls, food wrappers, takeout containers, and other packaging. So you may be seeing some changes in these areas in the future when you visit your favorite fast food or fast takeout restaurant. Also, just in March, a couple weeks ago, the Environmental Protection Agency announced that they are getting ready to impose restrictions on the levels of forever chemicals in drinking water. So this means that communities will need to start making sure that they are measuring these various forever chemicals and start putting in safety measures to protect the water that we use for drinking, bathing, or other personal hygienes. So although there is limited research on humans regarding the impact of obesogens, it might be in our best interest to be aware of the possible risk factors related to obesity and other health concerns. So how do we do that? Well, some examples would be to limit the amount of canned or processed foods. This will help reduce exposure to these endocrine destroying chemicals such as BPA. We could cut back on our carry-out and fast food, minimize our exposure to phthalates and forever chemicals, perhaps take our own glass container to transport our carry-out food. I recently saw this done in the small town that I live in at a food truck. Somebody brought their own glass container to get their takeout food. Use glass or aluminum containers to store food, again to help reduce our exposure to BPA. Don't microwave plastic containers or even wash plastic containers in the dishwasher so we can minimize our exposure to BPA when it is heated. Don't reuse single-use plastic bottles. again, help to reduce the BPA exposure. Use stainless steel or cast iron cookware instead of nonstick pans to limit our contact with those forever chemicals. In addition, buy pesticide-free products such as organic to reduce our exposure to things like atrazine. Avoid a high-fat diet, which exacerbates obesogenic effects of various chemicals, such as with atrazine. Wash your hands before eating and when prepping food. Reduce the amount of chemicals that are on your hands. A lot of these chemicals are found in lotions, hand lotions, and other personal care products. Make sure to thoroughly wash your fresh produce to reduce external chemicals that still may be present from the location they were grown in. And of course, filter your water. Try to minimize pesticide residue as from atrazine or organotins. And of course, don't forget to investigate your choice of bottled water to see where the water source may be coming from. And certainly check with your local water company for information on the content of your community water sources that you may use for drinking, washing, or personal hygiene. So in conclusion, much of the research regarding obesogens has been conducted in animal studies or in vitro. There is some evidence that obesogens may disrupt the human endocrine system and increase the risk for obesity. This could be one more piece to the puzzle regarding this increased incidence. So let's do another poll. So now that we know what obesogens are and what the potential health impact might be, the question becomes, would you be willing to make changes in your lifestyle to reduce the risk of obesogens? And while you're completing the poll, these are the references that I used in helping to put this presentation together. So what are you all thinking? You think you are willing to make whatever changes are necessary to help minimize the exposure? Awesome. It looks like we got everybody's interested in doing something. We've got 3 votes for yes. Oh, we got 4 votes for yes and 3 votes for possibly. Just depending on how many changes. And, even just a few changes, 1 or 2 change, certainly can go a long way. Since, again, all of the research is not conclusive yet, but taking a few steps today may impact your health somewhere down the road. So I want to thank you all for participating in this Nutrition Month event. And I'm going to stop the recording and see if there is any other questions or any other comments